safe. Uh, I welcome you all for this today's session, and I would like to introduce our resource person, Mr. Moinam Chatterjee. He's associated with Mercedes Benz R&D India as a full stack developer. He has over 3 years of experience in industry. He has been a part of IEEE for more than 7 years now. He is also the chair elect for the IEEE Young Professionals Affinity Group, Bangalore section. And he has also delivered a lot of sessions like this in his field throughout India. Recent was in Delhi. I welcome him on behalf of KLS JIT and request him to take over this session from here. Moinu sir.
Thank you, Ashish. I'll be sharing my screen. Tell me once you can see it.
Yeah, Moinam, it's visible. Yeah, my name's sir.
Okay then. Hello everyone. So welcome to the Angular JS workshop. Um, so what we are going to do is we are going to learn the basics of Angular and create a single page application in the 2 sessions which have been scheduled today and tomorrow. So the main idea behind this workshop is to give you an idea of how you can create your own single page web applications from front end to back end using database integration, everything. The main focus of the website will be regarding the Angular part of it. I will show you how you can integrate with Java as your backend server and how you can interact with database. But that will not be the main part. The main part will be how we can, learn how to create single page applications and why should we use Angular or why single page application is required. So what I have decided is I am not going to, talk a lot theory, because what happens is when I talk a lot of theory without any, practical work to do, it makes it difficult for you to, keep your pace with me. And again, we have to revisit the same things. So before starting the workshop, there's something which I would like all of you to do. If you can see, there is an command prompt which I've opened out here. So I would like if all of you can very quickly uh, do this ng new my app command. So I hope that all of you have installed the Angular CLI as it was requested. So I think guys, we can unmute and you can let me know if it is something which you're aware of. If you have already installed the ng, that is npm install in Angular CLI at the latest. If you have done it, then you can go ahead and do this. So just tell me if you are following me now, any of you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then, so when you do ng new my app, so what this does is it tells the Angular to create a new application which has been bootstrapped. So this takes some time. That is why I'm doing it in the start itself. Let me just, I think I'll make it a bit more bigger so that you guys can see. Yeah, okay. So from this, what we will do is we are going to, so it asks, would you like to add Angular routing? I'll explain all this later on. But for now, we will press Y and we will enter. It asks you that which style sheet would you like to use? So we are going to use CSS. So CSS is the first one which has been selected. So you can just go on and click enter. Now, what it will do is it will start installing certain things. So it will take some time. We will let it do it. It will install a lot of packages which are required for your application to work. So what I'm going to do is we are going to go back to the presentation and I'll start explaining the um, theory aspect of it. In the meanwhile, let this continue because it will take some time. Okay, so back to the presentation. So first, I'll explain why you need a single page application. So what happens is all our web enthusiasts who have joined us in this workshop, you will be familiar with creation of websites, and in normal creation of websites, um, if you're just doing normal HTML code, so how do you go to a new page? So there is an anchor tag which we use. So, okay, so before even that, I am considering that maximum of you know the basics of HTML and CSS. So I will explain. If anyone has any question, just unmute yourself or just put it in the chat box. I'll explain it. But yeah, so that is one of the prerequisites. I'm considering that you know basics of HTML and CSS. So, okay. So yeah, so now when you click on anchor tags, you have an option to select HTML files. So you can select multiple HTML files and create multiple pages for an application. So considering that a page has an home page, it has an about me page, it has an contact me page. So what we do is we create three separate HTML files and then we link them together using our toolbar header. So where we can navigate between different pages. So in this case, what happens is that you load the HTML files each and every time you switch between the pages. And there is also something called as JavaScript. So JavaScript is used to introduce business logic to your applications, to your websites. So if you want to do some type of calculation or if you want to do some type of um, object reading or object manipulation, you normally use JavaScript in a normal web environment. So what happens is when you have a lot of pages, like say we will consider Amazon. So Amazon is a very big website. It has multiple pages. So if we used the normal concept of using normal separate HTML pages and then linking them using the anchor tag, it will not only load your HTML files, but it will also load the JavaScript which is associated with it, which will take a lot of time to load because each and every page will have its own logic, and until and unless the logic is not ready, the HTML will not load completely. So to avoid this type of situations, what we do is we start by doing single page application designing. So in single page application, there is only one HTML file which you load, and using certain concepts and procedures, we keep on updating that HTML file with our new information as you navigate in the application.
Excuse me,
So
sir.
So there's
yeah,
a doubt in chat box.
There is a doubt in.
yeah, tell me.
So Manjunath Rampure asks, sir, there is an error while creating the app.
What is the error?
Manjunath, can you please unmute yourself and speak up?
Merge conflicted on path. It sounds like that.
Have you installed ng?
Yes, sir. I have installed.
Okay, so after installing ng, what is the message? Did you get the options of selecting CSS and routing, or it gave you error before that?
No, sir. After getting the options of CSS, after selecting CSS.
Okay, so it now what error is it giving you?
Merge conflicted on path my app angular.json.
Have you already created some application before?
Yes, sir.
So do one thing. So at the moment, my directory out here is desktop, right? So try to do ng new app in a separate directory. Maybe
Okay,
create a separate folder called as new project, and inside that directory you open command and make a project out there. So I'm going to show you how.
can I make it on desktop, sir?
You can do it. It just should. I think what is happening for you is that there is already a project with that name in that directory. So that is why it is giving you an error. So what you need to do is, so I'm going to show you an example. So this is a folder project UI. This is a folder which I created on desktop. So out here, you can just type CMD. And when you type CMD, a command prompt will open. Yeah. So a command prompt will open, and out here you can do ng my app. Or if you want to continue in the same place, you can just change the application name. Maybe you can make it my app 1 or 10, something like that. So it knows that you're talking about a different project. Okay. Okay, so just do that. Let me know how is it. So yeah, so back to the single page application. So in single page application, what we do is that, as I was telling, that the entire web application fits on a single web page with dynamic actions without refreshing. So you do not need to refresh each and every HTML files to have an effect. So using the Angular framework, what it does is whenever you change certain elements in the backend, it makes its necessary changes in your HTML file. So whenever you change, say you are changing some object where the name has changed from cat to dog. So in other applications, if you want to reflect that change, you need to refresh your web page. That is not required in single page application because there is something called as data binding. So in this data binding, what happens is it binds certain variables from your JavaScript or TypeScript to your HTML. So whenever there is a change in that value, it is also reflected in your HTML. So this is also one of the big advantages of using the single page application framework. So then what we do is, as it says, single page application is good for making responsive websites. So you can make websites for tablet, for laptops, for mobile phones, Android, iOS. It's completely, if you write the cascading style sheets properly, it is completely responsive based on whichever device you choose. So that is also one of the biggest advantage of this. You create your application in your laptop, but that application can work anywhere and everywhere, from your phone to tablets and desktops. So you don't have to write any extra queries to server to download pages, because as I said, there is only one single page called index.html, and you manipulate that. So there is no need of downloading extra HTML files each and every time you navigate between in the website. The performance improvement is, it can improve in, one of the biggest improvement out here happens in the load time. So as I said, normally in enterprise applications, there are a lot of files which needs to be loaded. For an example, my own Mercedes Benz application, the application which I work on, it almost has 40,000 lines of codes in the UI. So if we do not use the single page application methodology, it would take a lot of time and the latency between the navigation will increase a lot. But also saying that there are always disadvantages. So with the disadvantages, the first disadvantage, as it says that the client must enable JavaScript. This has become a bit obsolete because maximum of the browsers, which are Chrome and Firefox, Microsoft Edge, all of these browsers have support of JavaScript now. So it is actually no more required, but still there are certain browsers, maybe Internet Explorers, the old Internet Explorers, IE11. So those don't have dependencies on all type of JavaScripts, and that might cause some problems. So you need to also think about that when you create an application, which is the browser which you are considering as default for your application. So the client must enable JavaScript, a single page application built with JavaScript. JavaScript enabled in all modern browsers by default. So we also the one of the biggest issue is that compared to the traditional page, a single page application is less secure due to cross-site scripting. So what cross-site scripting means is that you can navigate from one page to another page without normal out-of-the-box security. Though we add security on our own, that is a different case, but by default, it is not there. So memory leak, yes. So memory leak can happen in JavaScript the same way. I hope you're all familiar with Java and the concept of garbage collection. So what happens is if you do not collect the amount of data which you are not using, it might create memory leak and will, slow down a system because there will be memory addresses which are not empty for it to take effect. So that is also one of the things. So normally in single page application, there are two big frameworks. One is Angular and one is React.js. So in Angular, what happens is that it is a JavaScript framework which is written in Typescript. It has a regular DOM. So DOM out here means document object model. So this is the tree type of an object which gets created when you open an HTML file. So it has a regular DOM which renders updates slower than React's virtual DOM. I'll not go very detailed in this, but normally what happens is consider there is a tree. And in a tree, if there are elements, right? So in a tree, all the elements are linked with each other, considering the parent node. So whenever you want to change a node, you need to navigate to all those nodes and change it, right? So that means if there is a node, if there is a parent node which you want to change, which is in level 2, and you are in level 10. So to reach that parent 2, you have to navigate the entire place and then you have to update it, which makes it slower. In React, the virtual DOM, the way it works is you don't need to navigate directly. There are already instances from where you can directly reach that particular node and update it without affecting any of the other nodes of the tree. So that is what a virtual DOM means. So the rendered JavaScript and HTML maintains a physical separation. Data binding is two-way, as I said. So if you make any change in an input from the HTML or you make any change from the component, both of them are directly binded and they take effect. Learning curve is higher because it is a framework. There are certain rules which we have to follow. Without following those rules, we cannot work on Angular. With React, it is a JavaScript library, two very different things. It's a library where you have separate plugins where you can use it according to what you need. And in Angular, it is a framework. So in React, again, as I said, it has a virtual DOM. It uses JSX. So JSX is a separate file which is used for React, the same way we use TypeScript for Angular. The learning curve is lower, but you only get the view. Because of this, you are going to learn a variety of third-party libraries. What it means is, in JSX, the view and the component are all combined together. So you do not have any separate handle on your HTML files. So they are all auto-generated. So React.js is used by Facebook, and Angular is created by Google, and React is created by Facebook. Angular is used for Netflix. A lot of you watch Netflix, so the entire application of Netflix is created in Angular. PayPal is created in Angular, so these are very big applications. A lot of applications are created in React. React at the moment is becoming more interesting for people, but if you are working on a proper formatted website, a lot of us, we still prefer Angular. Okay, so just an update. Is your Angular project created? Can anyone give me a heads up if everything is fine? And the person who had a problem, is it fine for you?
Yes, sir.
Fine, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fine. Then we will
Hello,
continue.
Moinam.
Yeah. Yeah.
My message shows that package is installed successfully, but Git is not recognized as an internal or external command. It is not
Okay.
complete.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it says package installed successfully, right?
Yes, yeah, till there where you're pointing, that message has come. Later, Git is not recognized as an internal or external command, operable program, or batch file.
Yeah, because most probably you do not have Git Bash installed in your system, so it is fine. It is not an issue. We can continue. There is no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we will go to the basics of Angular. Again, I am sorry, guys. I don't want to bore you with theory, but there are certain things which you need to know before you can start. So So today, in the 2 day session which we will take, we will be learning the basics of HTML, CSS. How do we use the Angular framework, and how do we write in TypeScript? What is TypeScript? Why do we use it? What are the basics of components and modules and Angular fundamentals which you need to know so you can start? So I'm going to come to this later on. Okay, so one of the things what we are going to do is the same way you use Python. So Python has a lot of secondary languages. It has a lot of secondary plugins which you can use for your data, data analytics, machine learning, and a lot of other things. So the same way you have something called as npm. So the same way in Python you have pip. In Node.js you have Node Package Manager. And there are certain plugins like Bootstrap and Material Design, which can be used to give you a fresh, a complete ready-made application, and you don't need to start completely everything in vanilla. So it gives you certain components which are ready to go, and you can start working on that rather than creating everything on your own. And it also contains certain plugins which makes your website look more attractive, and then you can work on those. So it also helps you minimize your unnecessary CSS styling. So TypeScript. So first, as you saw in Angular, we talked about TypeScript. So in TypeScript, what happens is that the entire Angular framework. So there are two frameworks in Angular. One is the older version, that is 2.0 previous. So previous to version 2.0, and then there is 2.0 plus. So 2.0 plus is what we are going to learn today, and that is actually what is being used everywhere. So in 2.0 plus, what has happened is a lot of us find it very difficult to do long programs in JavaScript, because in JavaScript also there is a normal way of writing the JavaScript, and there is an oops method of writing. So what Google did is they collaborated with Microsoft. So Microsoft created something called as TypeScript, which lets you write JavaScript the same way you write code of C# and Java. So it uses the same logic as classes and objects and constructors. But when you compile it, at the end of the day, the browser does not understand TypeScript. So it compiles all your files into JavaScript. So that is the main use of TypeScript. It was done so that the developers can find it more easier, because a lot of us do not write in JavaScript, but we have studied C++, we have studied Angular, we have studied Java. So it helps us to, uh, make the learning curve a bit more easier. So TypeScript lets you write JavaScript the way you really want to. So it is typed superset of JavaScript that compiles to plain JavaScript. So what it means is that there are certain fundamentals of JavaScript which are included in TypeScript, so that you can use those functionalities. So TypeScript is, again, it's pure object oriented with classes, interfaces, and statically typed like C++, C# or Java. So the popular JavaScript framework Angular 2.0 is written in TypeScript, and mastering this can help you write object-oriented programs and then compile them into JavaScript on both server and client. So TypeScript is not only required for Angular, but you can use this same language for other purposes also. So TypeScript, again, it is just a JavaScript. It adopts the basic building blocks of your program. And that is why if you know the basics of JavaScript, again, it is very easy for you to switch to TypeScript and the vice versa. So it supports all the JS libraries, and all the files which are compiled are converted into .js, but all the TypeScript files they end with .ts. So that is the file extension of all the TypeScript files. It is portable. It is portable across browsers. It is one of the biggest features why people like using this. It can run on any environment that JavaScript runs on. Unlike its counterparts, it also doesn't need a dedicated VM or specific runtime environment to execute. The same way you have in Java. Okay, so there is an error when creating the app, a merge conflicted on path, Tanishka Patil. So yeah, Tanishka, what you have to do is, again, as I told the same thing to Manjunath before, you need to do your creation of project in some separate directory. Most probably you have already created an application with that same name. That is why it is giving you that error.
Okay, sir.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so now we come to Angular. So Angular is an open source TypeScript based front-end web application framework. It is released by Google, a lot of you know. So this tutorial, normally it starts with the architecture of Angular, setup, simple project and data binding. And then we work towards forms, templates, routing. And out here I've written Angular 8, but we will be using Angular 12, which is the latest version at the moment. And then we will conclude by a step-by-step working example. So the architecture of the Angular application normally relies on the fundamental concepts, and one of these fundamental concepts are organized by ng modules. So this is a very important part. So ng modules collect related code into functional sets. So what it means is that an ng module is type of a directive which you use out here. It is like a metadata. So the same way you have metadata in your applications, we have metadata out here, and ng module tells your application and components exactly what the application needs to know before it can execute itself. So it always has at least one root module. We will go through it in detail when I show you the code and when I explain you the code, how it works, and we will develop it together. Yes, so components define views, which are sets of screen elements that Angular can choose among and modify accordingly. I'll explain this in the second slide much better. Components also use services which provide service functionality not directly related to views, and it can be injected in components as dependencies. Again, I'll explain what all this is. But so before we go further, I'll just also add this, that in Angular, what we do is, the Angular has something called as components. So components means that you are creating separate building blocks. So they're like separate bricks. So when you stash one brick on Apan, you create a wall. But each of those bricks have its own properties. So that is how Angular also works. So all these components are separate bricks which are used to create the wall of which is used to create the house. But each of these brick has separate property and it can be reused. So modules. So the module is actually a collection of related features and functionalities. It contains multiple components and groups. So you can say that for a house, if there are 4 walls, so say the wall A is a module, and those module has around, say, 1,000 bricks. So all those 1,000 bricks are components. So if the way you connect with the bricks, how do you put bricks together? You put cement, right? Plus cement are the services. The best example, right? So the cement binds all those components together. Those are the services which helps you interact with components, with all the components with each other. And all those components form one single wall, which is your module. So for example, the animations related functionality, okay, we'll get to this later. So an Angular application can have number of modules, the same way your house can have n number of building blocks. So it can have separate structures which use bricks. It does not need to be a wall. It can be anything. So, but only one module can be set as the root module. So you can consider the root module as the floor planning of your house. So the floor planning of your house is the main structure on which the entire house is built. And the floor structure has the capacity to reach throughout the floor, throughout the house. So that is your root module. So a module can be configured to access functionality from other modules as well. So components from any modules can access. We will get onto this. So okay, so this is just an example. I hope all of you know flowcharts and normal building blocks. So in this case, what it tells is there is this app, in brackets it is Bootstrap. So what Bootstrap means is that when you run your Angular application on a server, the server always first calls this app Bootstrap module. So this is the module which it is going to load, and in this, whichever component you want your application to load, that will be the first component which we will be loading. So that is what it means by app Bootstrap. So this is your root module, which is also created as we did before. We have done this ng new my app, right? So if you go inside ng new my app, you will see that there is one module called as app module, and it has an app component. So that is your root of your application. Then from that app Bootstrap, as it shows, there are say 4 modules: module 1, module 2, module 3, and module 4. So all these modules has separate components and services, but they're all independent of each other. But the app Bootstrap goes inside, and then there is again something called as Bootstrap out here. So as I said, so this is the root component. Now this root component can call other components as it is necessary, but this is what your application will start with. I'll explain this more when we go in normal developing of the application, but these are some basic things which will help you understand or grasp the features much properly. So then we have Angular components. So components are the most core feature of the Angular framework. It is a building block for every Angular application. It is made of basic JavaScript, which is your TypeScript class for us, and it has an HTML file. So, okay, so it has an HTML file and it has an associated name. So what we do in single page applications is there is a big index.html. We do not do anything else. Inside that index.html, we keep on adding other components. So in this way, what happens is we can use components as directives. What this means is, if you are working on an HTML project, you will see certain things called as H1 tag, right? You will see things called as P tag or div tag. So these are all elements, right? So in Angular, in single page applications, what we can do is we can add HTML files as tags. So you can have 10 or 15 components, and you can just add it as contact us in tag and then close the tag. So what this tells is that you want to import the contact us HTML into your root index.html. I'll explain this in more detail. So we have a component, it renders the template. So the template has an consisting logic, business logic. That business logic is the other component. And then there is a style sheet. So out here, you can manage each and every component separately, which gives you the idea of having separate components, and it gives you also the opportunity to reuse it again and again and again. So you can create a component called contact us for one of your projects, and just by copying the files of that component into your new project which you're working on, you can directly join them and start working. So you can reuse your components very easily in single page application. This is also one of the biggest advantages. Okay, so this is the last main thing. So this is just a workflow of how this application works. So if you see, there is this entry point. So the entry point is basically from where your Angular application starts working. It goes to your app module. So app module out here is Bootstrap. Then the app modules can talk with other modules out here. It can talk with an app component, which is your Bootstrap component. So directly from the app module, it goes to app component and it loads all the things which is inside the app component, and then it will consider all the other building blocks so it can get the necessary features as it needs. This is just an overview. You might not understand this. At the end of the session, after 2 day session, we will get back to this, and I am sure you will know what we are talking about. So just one last. So as I explained data binding before, so there is something called as an MVC model. So an MVC model means there are three things in a particular application. So one is the view. So the view is the HTML and CSS which you write. Then there is a controller, the controller which has the logic. So it has your Typescript and the APIs which you need to configure with your server. And at the end, you have something called as a model. In model, what happens is this defines the objects which you are working on. So a model can be normal variables in your application, or it can be some database entry which you are trying to fetch from a server. So whenever there is a change in model, it automatically reflects the view via the controller. So this is the MVC model on which the entire Angular application rests on. So, okay. Yeah, okay then. We will start with the live demo. Let me just have my video on. Okay. Okay. So, what we are going to do is, so all of you, I think I had mentioned it would be better if you could, if you could install Visual Code. So I'm considering that you have some IDE or Visual Code, because my entire application will be developed using Visual Code. So what I am going to first show you is an application which I've already created, and this is what we will achieve at the end of this workshop. So if you see, there is something called as ngserve, which I have used. So ngserve actually means that you want your application to compile and create the necessary JavaScript file so that it can be deployed in a localhost. So we will just quickly, so this is an application which I have created. We will be reaching this point from the starting, and I'll tell you how the things are done, how everything works. But this is just a demo of how things will look like, at least by today, the next remaining 2 hours of the session. And yeah, so by the time it builds, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my Visual Code. Okay, I'm going to open the folder. So if you're using Visual Code, then you can do it with me. So in this case, I have created a new project in desktop. Okay. Okay, this has been created in users Moinam. Okay, so one moment, let me open the users. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, so I made a mistake. I didn't go to desktop, so I created my application directly in users. I don't like trying to do a lot of manipulations out here. So I'm just going to cut this out here, and I'm going to paste it in my desktop so that it becomes easier for me to continue from this point. So yeah, so for the others, if you have already created the project in your documents folder or any folder, you can go in it and you can open Visual Codes to open that folder, and then yeah, then we can start. Okay, it looks like my app has been moved. So we'll go to file, we'll go to open folder. Okay, so I have a separate application running, so I'll not be running ngserve now. So this is the application which I've already created, and this is how it is going to look at the end of the day when we create our application. So this is a single page application. I've used all the functionalities which are there, which you would need for for yourself to start. So yeah, so I'm most probably, if everything goes good, we can see this at the end of today's session, and then we will work on the other pages as it goes on. Okay, so so I'm going to quickly stop the server which is running, and I'm going to see if my copy paste has worked. So if you are inside your application, so this is how it should look like. You will have something called as node modules on the top left. You will have app, assets, environments, main.ts, and all these packages already available once you do ng new my app. So this is actually a ready-made application which you can go ahead and do ng serve. So if everything has worked properly for me, then the ng serve should work, or else I just have to create a new application because I copy pasted from one place to other. Sometimes there are certain JavaScript files which do not get routed properly, and that is why you might have some problems if you do the same thing as I did, transferring the entire application from one place to another. That is not advised, but yep. So okay, so you can see a lot of things towards the left hand side. The source defines the root of your application. So whatever is inside the source is basically where your application is entirely hosted. Inside app, you will have something called app component.css, app component.html. You'll have app component.ts, app module.ts, and app routing module. So first, as I explained, there is a root module, right? So we'll go inside app module, and I'll explain what all these words mean. So ng module, if you remember, I was talking about @ ng module, right? Which talks about the metadata and features which a particular module needs to work. So this is what it means. So that is why we are importing. So Angular/core are all the core libraries. So whenever you install all these packages together, there are core libraries which are mentioned. So Angular/core contains a lot of libraries which you will be needing for your application to work, and those functionalities can be directly imported as packages from Angular/core. The same way we do import java.util or Yeah, java.util or java.io, same way, same method. So it is so simple. The same thing if you would have done in JavaScript, it would have taken a lot of effort. So then you have something called as a browser module. So browser module, all these components are required by your app to work. So browser module is again a particular component in the Angular code libraries, which are used for your packages to run on the server. So by default, you will have browser module already loaded. So there is again something called as an app routing module if you see. So if you remember when we created our application, it asked us, do you want a routing module to be created? And we said yes. So what it means is in this routing module, you can define components and paths. So once you define the paths, you can directly go ahead and you can route between the pages. So the same way we go from home to about us to contact us, that entire approach has been taken care by this app routing module. We'll get to this app routing module at the end. So as you see, my it has been compiled successfully. Let's see if it works. Okay. So if you have done everything properly, this is something which you should see. So this is already an ready-made application which is running. So yeah, so this is something which you will already see. So you see there is already an toolbar, there is already some elements which you can interact with. There is something called as terminal and all these things are there, right? So this is how simple it is. Within just a few steps, as you did ng new my app, you have already created a bootstrap HTML for you on which you can start working. So we are going to keep this aside. So yeah, so app module, I hope you understand. So app module is the bootstrap module for your web application. This is where your server loads. So when the server, when I use ngserve, it uses the TypeScript library to create JavaScripts from the TS files which you have created. And since this TypeScript files has been configured to work with Angular, it understands which are the files to be loaded first and compiled first and linked. Once the linking is done, the app module is the first component, first module which gets loaded. Then if you will see, there is something called as Bootstrap. Inside Bootstrap, you will see app component. So what this means is your app module is the root module, and the app component is your basic component which will load on application start. So that is all what it is there in the app module at the moment, right? Now let us go to app component.ts. So in app component.ts, again, you will see that there is something called as a component, which I've again imported from Angular/core. So component is a library which is available in Angular/core, and I can import it to create components. Again, so in @component, whatever I mentioned, this is the metadata for that component. So the selector out here, which is app root, it means that this is the tag which you will use in the HTML files when you configure. Template URL is the HTML file which will be loaded when you use app-root in your HTML file. And style is the separate component.css which is specific for this component. So app component.html, you will already see certain things out here. So you will see that it has already created an HTML with style. So inside the style, you have the entire CSS for your application, and then you have a toolbar. So this entire, so all the div tags from here is what this is all about. So this entire thing which you see out here is running from this div. Okay. So if you see, there will be somewhere something called as app router outlet. Okay. So for people, say if you by chance have not created the routing module at the start of your application, so you'll not have this. So what router outlet does is, as you can see, right, as I was talking before. So router outlet is not an HTML tag. It does not exist in reality. There is no tag called as router outlet in HTML5. But out here, what happens is, from the app routing module, we can configure components in such a way that whenever you go in the path, inside this router outlet div tag, all your HTMLs will be loaded. So in your basic, there is one index.html. So this is basically the HTML which is running on your browser. So I'm using Chrome out here. So this is the component which is running on your browser. And inside this, so as you can see, there is an HTML tag. This is how you normally write HTML programs in your labs, right? So you have a title, then you have some links, and then you have a body. But the strange thing inside the body is something called as app root. So what this means is that inside the body, it is going to load the component which has a selector called as app root. So index.html is the main HTML file which you have loaded. Inside this, since you have written app root, now it is going to find what is app root. I don't know, right? So then it is going to see that, okay, there is a component which is declared. And for the selector app root, I have to load this certain files. So I have to load its HTML, I have to load its CSS. And inside this component, I can write any business logic which I want. So this is the basic way the app module gets created, right? We can go to the app routing module now. So in app routing module, this entire module is specifically created for you to create paths. So you can create separate paths in your Angular file, and then it can help you navigate. So we will get on to this later on. So I've explained you what index.html does, what approot does, how does it configure together. Then you will have a lot of things out here. So we will go to package.json. So a lot of you might not know what JSON is. So JSON is basically a JavaScript object. This is how we configure our libraries in normal APIs. So whenever you call an API will send you a response in a JavaScript object. This is how a JavaScript object looks like. So each and every object starts with a curly brace. Inside the curly brace, you have a key and you have a value. And you can keep on inserting new key and values using the comma separator. This is how a JSON looks like. So what we are going to do is I'm going to explain what are the things which are written in the package.json. So in the start, it shows you the name. So we had written ng new my app, right? So that is why it shows my app. You can change this to one. You can change it to any of your own name if you want to. Then we have the scripts. So in the scripts, what happens is this is linked with your ng CLI, which you have installed before. And it explains that whenever you type ng serve, it means you want to start your application. Whenever you do ng build, that means you want to build the JavaScripts of your application so that you can deploy it on a server. And then there are things called as watch and test. We'll not get to it. We will only consider with ng start for now. Then out here, you have dependencies. So if any of you have worked on Angular, if you have worked on Android projects before, so in Android projects, what we do is we have Gradle. So in Gradle, you store all your dependencies which are needed for your application to run. So the same way inside these dependencies, these are the default packages which have already been installed when you ran ng new my app. So there is Angular router, which is used for your routing. Platform browser dynamic is for browser dependencies so that the application can run on your browser. Forms is for creation of input forms. So the places where you write a name, you enter your name, you enter your address, and you click submit button. So those are what we call as forms. And for those forms also, it has installed a version. Then there is core. We have the compiler, of course, and then we have some common packages and animations, which is required for your application to work. Dev dependencies normally, okay, so when we work on enterprise applications, there are two ways we go. One is dev dependencies and one is normal dependencies. So the dev dependencies are the ones which will be used when you are developing your application. And the dependencies are the packages which are used when you are going to create the build build package for deploying it in your server. So this is what package.json does. Whenever you want to install a new package, you need to do it from here. So all the packages which you need for your Angular project to run will be imported out here, and then they will be used in all the places. So then again, we have something called as angular.json. In angular.json, it creates certain configurations for your application to work. So like it has a schema. So there are certain module or functionalities which it takes. Then what it does is it talks about the source root, as I said. So your entire application root is src. Whatever you write inside src will be, it can be fetched by your app. So if you want to add any images, if you want to add anything, you can add it in assets and it will take it. So then we have something called as styles. So this is a global style value. So there are some CSS files which you would like to, create globally. So in that case, we use styles.css. And then there are certain other configurations. I will not get to it, but basically what it means is that it has all the files which your browser or which your Android, which your Angular application needs to work. So as I was talking about style.css, we are going to make a quick change. We are going to go to assets. Inside assets, you will see there is nothing. So in assets, I'm going to create a new folder called as CSS. And inside this CSS, I'm going to again create a new file called as main.css. So this main.css will be responsible to have all the CSS files which are required by your application globally. And now since you have created your main.css, this CSS also has to be imported in your style so that it understands, it recognizes that, okay, you want a particular style to be imported in your application, right? So how we do is we will write @import. So these are CSS commands. So we will write import, and then from import, we will enter the path from where we want to import it. So with Visual Code, as you type /, it already gives you the information of what are the files and directories available. So we are going to go to assets, we are going to CSS, and we are going to do main.css. So what this has done is that it has now imported your main.css in your root of the project. And whatever CSS you mention out here will be reflected all around your application. So we'll save it for now and we will keep it aside. We will go back to our app component.html and now we will start creating things. So before we do anything, so as you can see my terminal, it is running. So I'm just going to type Control-C. If I type Control-C, I will get an option called as terminate batch job Y or N. So I'm going to click Y. So what it does is that it is going to terminate the ng-serve which you are running. And now you can do some other, you can execute some commands for your component. So first, what we are going to do is we are going to create certain modules and we are going to create certain components. So first, what we will do is we will create a component. So how you create a component is you type ng, that is the script, that is the CLI. Then you press G. So G means generate and C means component. So you're doing ng generate C. And now I'm going to do home. So it is going to generate a component called home in my app module because I have not mentioned anything else. So whenever I do ng-gc home, it means that you are talking about your app module. So I want to create a component in the app module. So I'm going to do this. Now, once I do this ngc home, you will see that there are certain, okay, guys, are you able to see my screen properly or should I increase the font size?
Should increase the font size, sir. Actually, we cannot.
Okay. Is it visible to all of you now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So now since we created this new component, so as you can see, it has run a script which has created 4 new files. So it has created an home component.html, a home component.spec.ts. So what it basically means is when we write a lot of applications, we also do testing. So in spec.ts, you have to write your unit test cases which can test your component if they're working properly or not. We are not going to cover the testing part of it, but this is why this spec.ts will be created with each and every component and service so that you can test it later on. Okay, so I see someone has got an issue.
Yeah, even I have got the same issue. Madam, I just had a question that you had built before. Is it for this project or something else? Building is
It is
necessary?
so so sorry, I had not I had built that application to show you, but what I'm doing now
Not
is
for this,
exactly,
right?
yeah, no. So this
No,
is
no.
completely fresh.
ngGC home is the first command that you're running on the terminal.
Correct.
Okay. So even I have got the same error which Manjunath has got.
Okay, so I can help you in this. So what you need to do is this basically happens if you have updated if you already had Angular pre-installed in your system, and what you did was you wanted to install a new one, and in that case, what has now happened is there are conflicting versions of Angular. So that is why the PowerShell of the Microsoft tells you that due to execution policy, it has been disabled. So how do you fix this is you can click on Windows R button. So it will show you a command, and in that we will go to app data. So we'll go to app data. It will open something like this. Inside app data, we will go to roaming, and in roaming, you will find npm and npm cache, 2 folders. Inside the npm folder, there will be ng. So for you in your particular computer, there will be another ng below this. If you right click on that and if you go to properties, it will show you that it is called ng.p1. So what you have to do is you have to delete that. So as it is showing ng, there will be one more ng for you out here. So you have to delete that. And then once that has been deleted, you will go to npm cache and just control all and shift delete. So when you delete this, you will be deleting your npm cache, and after that you will not get this error anymore. So do these steps. So go to app data. For going to app data, you can directly press Windows R, and inside Windows R you can go to app data. When you click on app data, you will be redirected to a folder like this. From there, go to roaming. In roaming, you will have npm. Inside npm, you will delete the last ng which is there. It will be called ng.p1, ps1. And then you will have npm cache. We will delete all of this so that your npm cache is completely restored. Once that is done, this error will go away. Tell me once this is done, and if you're still facing the same issue, we can revisit this. Okay, so since this is done now, we'll get back to our application. So as I was saying, so we have created this new home component now. So it has a home component HTML, TS, and CSS, and it has been updated in app module. So what has been updated? We'll go to our app module again. So in this app module, you will see something called as declarations. So in declaration, what happens is that okay, maybe I should also increase the font size of this, right? Are you able to see the code, or is it a bit difficult for you?
We can see, sir.
You can see it properly, right? Okay, then I'll not increase it. Okay, so as I created this home component, you can see that now it has imported this home component automatically. And when they have done this, it has automatically put it in the declarations. So if you don't want to run this ngGC home and you want to create a component manually, so you have to do this. Okay, Manjunath, great. So for home component, then what you have to do is we will import this component now, put it into the declarations. So what it means is the app module is declaring two components. One is app component, one is home component. The app component is what is Bootstrap. That means this is the component which will be loaded initially. And then if I want, I can also use the home component. So we'll not stop at this. We'll create some more components. And once all those components are done, we will again get back. I think my video was getting stuck, so it's better I keep it like this. So, okay. So once this is done now, we will go back and what we will do now is we will again create some other components which we require. So we have created home component now. We are going to create another component called as home product view. I'm going to tell you why all this is required. But for now, let us just create components and then I'll create it with you. So we'll go home product view. So when we do this ngGC home product view, so if you are familiar with Linux commands, so whenever you put an hyphen, it actually means that you want to make that the next letter capital letter. So this is the snake ladder type of case out here. So when you do home product view out here, so you will click on OK. So once this is done, it is going to create. Okay, so we are going to create a shopping application the same way for Amazon and Flipkart. So we will create an application. For that, we are going to create a home. In that home, we are going to show some of our view, and we are going to create a checkout, and we will create a user page. So this is the basic what we are going to do. So once your home product view is created, go ahead and also do again ngGC for checkout. So what this will do is it will create a component for your checkout page for your Angular application. We'll do this. So as you can see, since I have put both of them together, so whenever I'm doing this ngGC, it is automatically updating my app module. So if your app module is not updated, then you have to keep in mind that for a component to take effect, they have to be declared in some way. If they're not declared, then those components will not work. Okay, so we have our checkout component. So now what we will do is we will create a module. So how we create a module is we are going to do ngGM, and then I'm going to create a module called as products. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm creating the building blocks for our application, and then we will start editing each and each component step by step. But for now, this is what I'm doing. We're just creating the schema for our entire application. So we've created a new module called ngGM products. Now I want to create components inside this module. How do I do that? Very simple. So I do ngGC. Products is the name of the folder where I have created it. And out here, I'm going to create another component called as product list. So when you do this, now it knows that the component which you want to create is not in your app module, but you are in a different module. So now the update has happened in your products.module.ts rather than the update happening in your app module, right? So again, we are going to create another thing out here. We're going to do info modal. And we'll create one last module called as ngGM, and what we are going to do is we are going to create a module called user. And with this user, we are going to add some interesting thing. So there is a feature in Angular called as lazy loading. In lazy loading, what happens is it only loads the JavaScript of that particular component which you're using at the moment. So what we are going to do is in ng-gm user, I am going to do --routing. So what this means is that for the module user, you also want to create its own routing module. So this is sub route. I'm going to do this. So now it has created two modules for me, one routing module and one normal module. I'm going to start creating now components inside this. So let's go user / user overview. Okay. Okay. And we will create another one for now, and if later required, we'll do it. And now we will create address. So now, after you do all this, towards the left-hand side or towards any IDE which you're using, you will see that there are some new components and modules which you have created. So now, what we are going to do is we are going to load some dependencies. As I told you, right, in package.json. In package.json, in dependencies, there are things. Now I want some modules which will be required for my application. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load some dependencies out here. So how we are going to do is the first thing, there is something called as Angular material. Angular material is like a function, it's like a plugin which is used to put some nice styles on your website. So you don't have to do all the CSS on your own. So this is the page. It's https material.angular.io. I'll put it in chat also. So you can go to this.
I have
and
a
you will
question.
Yeah, please tell me.
If suppose by mistake, if I have created a component or module and I want to delete it, what is the command used?
Okay, so unfortunately, you cannot have any command to delete it, but I'll tell you exactly what is necessary. So what we will do is, so consider now I have created this user address component and I have made a mistake. So what do I do? So this shell script tells me what changes the shell script has done, right? It has created 4 things and it has updated my user module. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my user module, and I see that there is this user address component which has been imported. I want to delete this. So I'm going to delete this from here. And then I'm going to delete this from here. When I do this, the component is now decoupled from your module. So now the component existence is invalid. So I can directly go ahead, go to user address and delete. So when I do this, my entire component gets deleted and all its associated dependencies are also gone.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so now the same thing, I can again create the correct component which I want with ngc user address, and then it will create the new component for me. So mistakes can happen, and there are ways we can handle with it. So no worry. If you have any more questions like this, please continue telling. So now what we are going to do is we are going to import Angular material. So it has a lot of interesting plugins which are very easy to use and which will make your development work much easier, because normally what happens is when you're building big applications, the business logic is more important than worrying about plugins, right? So if there is something which I can get assistance, then it is better to take it rather than creating it completely from your own. But if you want to, say, learn CSS or jQuery, things like that, then you can try to mock those CSS so that you will understand how CSS is written, right? Because a lot of people don't know how CSS is written, they just use it. So that will also be interesting for you. So now what we are going to do is we are going to run a command ng add angular slash material. So what is this? What this command is going to do is it is going to update our package.json and add the necessary CSS files which is required by our application to run. Okay, so we are going to do this ng add angular slash material, and we are going to press enter. When you do this, you will get some notifications, certain prompts, and I'm going to tell you what they mean and why we need to install. So the first prompt which you will get is that, do you want the material at the rate 12.0 to be installed and executed? So the answer is yes. So this is going to take some time. It will install the package. Meanwhile, what we will do is we will go back to our app component.html, and the basic rule when working with Angular is to keep app component.html as free as possible. So app component.html should only contain div tags which will be static throughout the page. Anything else should be handled by separate components. So the app component is like your basic, as I said, so this is your floor of your home. Okay, so we got the next thing now. So it says indigo pink and all these things. So it hardly does not matter. But basically what this means is that when you are working on the Angular materials, it will select a certain color theme for your application. So say for me, I'll go with deep purple and amber. So I'll select this. Now it says that, do you want to set up Angular material typography styles? So what this means is that there are certain styles of font which is used by Angular material. And if you want to use this on your application globally, you can do this. For me, I'm going to show you in CSS, so I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go N. So with this, what happens is there is no global class of CSS which has been declared for the fonts which I can use for my website. I still have my freedom. Okay. Now it says set up browser animations. So basically what this means is that when you are interacting with elements from Angular material, there is some animations which will happen. For those animations, you need transitions and CSS scripting. So if you enable browser animations from the code library, what it will do is it will enable all those animations. If you click no out here, none of the animations for Angular material will work. So we're going to click yes, and then it is going to set up the browser animation for your Angular material. Meanwhile, this is happening. We'll go back. So as I said, whatever is there in your app component.html is completely specific of the data which you want to keep central. So I'm going to start editing this. So first I'm going to delete all these comments. So now I'll explain you certain things. What do they mean? But before that, let us do something. If you remember in the start, you saw something called as style, right? So this is how we add CSS files in our normal HTML. We don't want this. We are working on Angular. We have a separate CSS file where we can assign all this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy this entire thing, the entire element which is there in style. which is there in style, and I'm going to cut it from here. So I'm going to remove it completely. So this style goes away. I'm going to delete this entire thing. So you're left with a toolbar out here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in app component.css. So I'm just pasting the entire thing. So all the CSS which I have mentioned in my app component.html is now out here. What this does is that it makes your HTML a bit more less cluttered, because you don't want your application to be completely clustered with CSS out here when you have a separate file to manage it. Okay, so in meanwhile, we see that once the package has been installed, there have been 4 updates. So you see that there has been update in app module.ts. We're going to go there and see what module has been done. So what happened is, since we had enabled the browser animation module, it has imported that. So now browser animation module is imported for your entire application and it can be used. So the second change has been done in angular.json. So as I said, angular.json is the configuration of your entire application. So out here now what it has done, it has taken the CSS of my Angular material and has put it out here. What this means is that when you are running your application, including styles.css, it is also going to load CSS from a separate place. So just to explain again, so node modules is basically a folder where all your libraries are there. So wherever you want to take some CSS or you want to do some extraction or import, all those happens through node modules. So whatever we are installing on now, all those dependencies are there in this node modules folder. If you delete these folders, you have to again do something called as npm install. So with npm install, what happens is it updates your package considering the dependencies which are available in package.json. So if you update a version in package.json, it does not automatically get reflected. You need to run this npm install command. In that, it will update your libraries in node modules based on what you have written in your package.json. Just a tip for all of you. So, okay, so Angular material is now available. It is done. So now what we are going to do is we are going to, so yeah, so as you can see, there is in your styles.css, it has again mentioned some type of font. So what we are going to do is we don't want this out here, because again, styles.css is only for importing. Whatever CSS we will write it in our main.css. So in that case, what we will do now is, if it is required, we will shift this entire thing to our main.css. For now, I'm just going to delete this entire thing. We will get back to this. Okay, maybe I'll just copy it out here and I'll paste it in main.css. Okay, so whatever has been updated out there is out here now. We are going to update this. So since we have updated in main.css, what this means is, in your body tag, the margin is 0 and the font which you are going to use is Roboto. So this is a font which is used in Angular material. If you want, you can change it. But these are the properties associated with Roboto which we are going to use in our application, and the body height is 100%. So these are some CSS which we have added. We are going to save all of them. So now since the Angular material installation is done, now what we will do is we will install Bootstrap. So there are 2 modules which we will be using out here. So this is the second one. This is called Bootstrap. I'm going to put it out here so that all of you guys can refer to it. Okay, so I see a question from Varun Joshi. Maybe as I explained, you will understand what is the difference between module and component. But normally what it means is that the module is a package under which components exist. So a module does not have its own HTML and CSS. A module only has components. So the module will only contain the components which are required for your application to run. but the component is where you are going to write your HTML, you are going to write your business logic. So that is the major difference. So module is a metadata of the packages which are available in that module. Once we go forward, I think we'll get it much better. So before we do ng add, okay, so I think maybe yeah. So what we'll do is we will go again and then execute another command. So what this is going to do is, now I'm going to install a package from npm which will make my Bootstrap available to the entire application. So npm install Bootstrap @latest. So again, some interesting fact for you guys. So whenever you say Bootstrap, npm install Bootstrap, so Bootstrap means the package which you want to install, and @latest means the particular production build. Instead of latest, if I go next, it will also install any new beta versions. So I don't want any beta versions. I want the stable version for Bootstrap to be installed. So I'm going to do Bootstrap @latest. It will install the Bootstrap. While this is happening, we will again go to app component.html. So now what we have done is we have removed the CSS from here and we have put it in our CSS file out here. Since the component.css and HTML are linked, it automatically means that whatever classes and div tags which we are using out here, it will automatically take the styles from our app component.css. So now, so what you're going to do is, once npm install is done, so now my Bootstrap is ready. If you go to package.json, you will see that, yeah.
I have have you copied everything from styles.css to, or you
Yes.
said only from the style body?
So
Only
from styles,
style tag?
so from styles.css, if you have followed my steps, below the import main.css, you would have had some other properties. So what I did was I copied those properties from the styles.css and I pasted it in main.css. So this components would be available in your style. I just put it out here for easier maintenance of CSS files.
Okay, what about HTML content? You copied only whatever is there in the style tag or everything in HTML?
No, so okay, so I'm going to tell you, this is what you might have seen before. Am I right?
Yeah.
This is what you see. So this entire thing you are going to copy, you are going to leave import as it is. You're going to copy this entire thing and put it in main.css.
Okay.
Is it clear?
No, my question was on something from HTML file. App component.html.
Okay. I understand what you're talking. So what I did was in the app component.html, there was something inside the style tag.
Style tag.
This tag. So whatever was there inside the style tag is actually CSS. So I copied that and I put it in my app component.css.
Okay, fine.
Okay. So Deshmukh sir, yes, we can take a break, but I just want to install all the packages which are pending. So now we have installed Bootstrap. Once the Bootstrap installation is done, what we will do is we will go to our styles.css and we are going to import the Bootstrap CSS in our application, because at the moment the package has been installed, but we are not using it anywhere. So to use it, what we are going to do is we are going to import it in our style.css. So how you're going to do it is you're going to do @import. So be careful that the Bootstrap should be imported before the main.css and not the opposite. If you do it in that way, then the main.css changes will override Bootstrap. So we don't want that happening for now. Okay.
Hello.
So yeah.
Sir, what we should do that style tags we should copy and paste it in the app.component.css.
Yes. So in app component.html, inside your style.css, there will be some elements, right? So you don't copy the style tag, copy everything which is in between. So all this. So all these elements which are there in your style, cut it from here and copy it and paste it out here in your app component.css.
Okay.
Moinam,
Okay.
I have got error for npm install bootstrap latest.
Okay. What is it saying?
Code e not found. All error codes. There is. Oh, it requires internet. Is it?
Yeah, it needs internet. You have to be linked with internet to install any packages.
Okay. Okay. My Wi-Fi has gone. Maybe I'll try it sometime later again.
Yeah, okay. So in the meanwhile, we will import the bootstrap.min. So what we are going to do out here is we have imported the bootstrap.min.css in our package. I'm also going to put it in the chat so you can just copy paste. So what this means is now you are able to import your entire application. Okay, so Rakshit, yes, you can actually go and you can directly put the CDN, but the reason why we don't do CDN anymore is because with the node modules package, when the building block is created, you already have the styles available with you. So you don't need to install, you don't need to, link it with internet, or else the CDN will always be downloaded from uh, the internet whenever you want to use Bootstrap. So okay guys, so at this moment you must have installed Bootstrap and Angular material. We're going to run one last command before we take a break, maybe of 5 to 10 minutes. In the meanwhile, if any of you have any doubts, you can ask me. So what we are going to do next is we are going to do what it says out here. We are going to do ng add @ng bootstrap /ng bootstrap. So what this command will do is it will create necessary changes for your bootstrap to be associated with the ng bootstrap package which has been built. So it is going to link all these things together. So you're going to run this. So now it will run and it will okay, so we'll go Y. We will install the bootstrap. So once you have created all these components and modules and you have done, okay, I also got another question. What is the difference between Angular material and Bootstrap? See, it is not much. Normally what happens is there are certain elements which I like using from Bootstrap and there are certain elements which I like using from material. So when you work on an application, you have the CSS available. So you can very easily import all those changes in your application as required. So maybe if you like how the buttons look like in material, so you can use those. And if you like the way, say, a table looks like in Bootstrap, you can use those. So it is not necessary that you need to use both, but because we have a time constraint and I don't want to, install everything from the start, I did this. In this case, what will happen is we can just take the plugins which are required and then we can directly use them rather than building everything on our own. So if you can see now, you have updated angular.json, module.ts and polyfills. So in angular.json, what we are going to do is, if you see, there is a bootstrap.min.css which has been added, which we specifically added out there. It does not make a difference actually. You can keep it out here and you can keep it in styles.css. It's the same thing. But I'm just going to remove this. So in my styles.css, I only have Angular material and styles, and the Bootstrap is loaded in the styles.css internally. Okay, I'm going to save this. So at this point, we have installed the Bootstrap components, material components. We have created the specific components and modules which are required for our application to run. So we will take a break of 5 to 10 minutes, and then we will again start. Now, after this, I'm going to show you how the website will keep on changing as we change things. So take a 5 minutes break, grab a coffee, have some snacks, and we'll be back. In the meanwhile, if anyone has any questions, you can ask me. So, yeah, we will start at 5:50.
Hi, Moinam. I'm over here.
Yeah, hi, I'm Muktil.
No, the thing is, it's a general doubt that I have. So, for building this website,
Mhm.
whether Angular is good or Node.js is good or React is good. So, what flavors can we choose out of these three when we are developing the website?
Sorry, can you tell again? I think your voice it is a bit. I can't hear you properly. Tell me again.
Yeah. So now is it audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, my question is, so when we start with the development process of any website, so
Mhm.
which would be much better, whether Angular or Node.js or React Native or Flutter? So which will be
No,
better?
okay. So you have used four different things. So it depends on your use case. So Angular is a framework-based application. So in Angular, what we do is all this ng template and all this you see modules and components. It is very different. So out here, there is a framework which is followed. And in React.js, what we do is we actually directly go to we used libraries. So for certain things, like as I showed you, Angular/core, right? So these are some direct, complete, from it gives you a vanilla flavor. So let me go to package.json. So in package.json, you will see Angular/animations. You will see Angular/core, compiler, forms. So these are all already available when you do ng new. So when you start with an Angular application, what Angular does it gives you everything which is necessary.
Okay.
So in this case, the benefit what happens is you don't need to search for those features from separate plugins. In React, it does not exist in this way. In React, to say have animations or to have forms or reactive forms, you need to search in their library and then install that package.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also in React, the concept is very different. In React, we do not have HTML and TS as separate files. Amok, can you go on mute? Yeah, okay. So in React, what happens is that you do not have any separate HTML files. So the concept of template and CSS and your TS file does not happen. Everything is combined into one file called as JSX. So in JSX, you dynamically create the HTML. So it gives you less control over how your HTML looks like. Sometimes it is good, sometimes it is bad. If you are someone who needs to work specifically with HTML and CSS, it makes your job very difficult in React. So it depends. React is useful for a lot of applications. React is normally faster. But again, since there are some applications where you need a strong foundation for things to be systematic, people use Angular. But I mean, in terms of single page applications, you can use both. Both are now hot in the market. People are, hiring for both React and Angular because both of these applications give the, uh, you know, give the give the control over the users to um, developers to create applications for separate platforms. So And when it comes to Flutter, so Flutter is completely a separate thing. So that is specifically used for creation of mobile applications, irrespective of iOS and Android. So if you work on that, what happens is you can create mobile applications without wondering that I have to do it in Swift or I have to do it in Kotlin or I have to use, packages from Android and I have to use packages from iOS. So for mobile application developers, it makes your life very simple. But yeah, uh, people are now migrating slowly and slowly to Flutter, but again, it also has its own complications. So yeah, so and Node.js, as you said, so Node.js is actually the basic foundation for both Angular and React. So when we do ng-serve, we run this on a server called as Express server. So the Express server is a server given by Node where you can install where you can unpack your Angular or React project, and then it is up on that Node server. So if you have been using Java, you might know there is something called as a Tomcat server. So in the Tomcat server, whenever you deploy your applications in your local host, those are the places from where the applications are deployed. So the same way you have out here. So Node.js is not a separate identity. Node.js is a part of all these things. So when you are working on the client side in Angular or React, you have the option to either communicate with a server which is written in Node or which is written in Java. In enterprise applications, you do not use Node because Node does not have the multi-threading capacity to handle enterprise applications. So for small applications, Node.js is good, but for enterprise applications, we still prefer Java or C Sharp. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, yes. Also, Moinam, the thing why I asked this is why I brought Flutter into picture is recently I just developed one web app using Flutter, so which is a combination of all three. It's a web app, Android app, and a iOS app.
Yeah.
So in that case, I brought this question into picture. Uh,
Yeah, no,
so
it's
it is
there.
better.
See, Flutter is very new. Is very new. It is very few people are using it, but it has a lot of potential. The same way Kotlin is now being used in Android, but people still prefer Java. So it's the same thing. If the developer feels that the application can be migrated, then it is okay. Because with React applications or Angular applications, you are basically writing a web application. That is your main focus. The web application, when you open it in your iPhone or in your uh, Android phone using your browser as Safari or Chrome, it will give you that proper web application feel in your phone as a mobile view. With Flutter, you can create separate apps in Play Store and the App Store. So normally that is one of the biggest differences. So as in as the libraries from Angular and React keep on getting added into Flutter, people might maybe in the future start using it. But for now, even Angular and React is it is getting common now, but it was very rare at a point. Very few people knew React and Angular. And at the moment, there is a lot of job availabilities for Angular and React developers.
Yeah, got it.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man. So one more doubt I have. So in that package.json, you just showed the file in the starting, right? So in that there are some options for build and other things. So the build
Mhm.
is for the deployment pipelines, or it's just to build software after the entire development. So what exactly is that?
No. So what happens is that, as I said, all the code which you write in TypeScript, it actually gets converted into JavaScript. Maybe I can show it to you. Let me see if there is. Okay. So 1 minute. So the root of the folder where you're running this, right?
Yeah.
So if you go inside and if you go to build, you will see something called as dist folder. Wait a minute. So the dist folder actually contains the runnable files for your application actually.
Okay.
So just a minute. So all those dist files contain, so whenever you do ngserve, it actually does an ng build. But after doing an ng build, it updates your application to a localhost in an express server. So in ng build, you just create a JavaScript package, which then can be run in a browser once you host it into a server. That is
Okay.
normally so that is normally how it happens.
Mhm.
I cannot. Yeah. So
Got your point. Got your point.
yeah. So with ng build, so again with ng build, there are two options. One is normal ng build. It is like it's a bigger package, and then another is ng build prod. So if you do ng build -- prod, it creates an package of 2 to 3 MB, and in that 2 to 3 MB of your package, you can actually deploy it in wherever you want. So when I deploy my own application, I do an ng build prod, and then I deploy it in my Azure cloud.
Yeah, yeah. Got your point. So that basically it's an internal building of application. It's not like a pipeline for deployment, right?
No, it is not pipeline. What ngbuild does is it runs your tslib compiler, that is your TypeScript compiler. It compiles your project based on the features which you have written in angular.json. So in angular.json, you write all your things, right? So once all these configurations, it takes all these configurations and it uses TypeScript to create JavaScript files. So in JavaScript files also, there is something called as ECMA. So that is actually oops of JavaScript. So I don't know if you can see it. So there is something called as an ECMA script. So this is tutorials point. It's a very nice website. So inside tutorial point, this is the TypeScript. So the ECMA script is basically the oops of JavaScript. But oops of JavaScript is very complicated to write. So that is why we write in TypeScript. But the TypeScript converts your TS files into ECMA JavaScript files. This ECMA JavaScript files actually run on your browser when you do ngserve.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. Thanks.
Yep. Anyone else? If you have any questions, or can I go ahead?
Yes, Moinam, I think we can proceed.
Great. Okay then. So now what we are going to do is that since we have all our components ready, so let us just quickly go and do ngserve and let's see what has changed for our application, right? We have added a lot of things, but we have not made a lot of changes. So I do not think that there should be any issue. So let us go and do the ngserve. Once you do the ngserve, it will again it will create the JavaScript files and then it will load it in your server. So the only change at the moment in terms of HTML, what we have done is that we have moved the CSS from the style tag in app-component.html to app-component.css. So this is the only change which we have done. So for all the HTML developers, I think you will get an understanding of how things are working now. Because normally for any web page to work, you have to insert something called a style, right? Without that, it does not work. But in this case, it will not be the same thing. We are going to see that the CSS automatically gets affected in our application, even though it is not mentioned in the style tag. So this is what the Angular compiler does in the backend. It takes all the packages which you have written and makes the specific dependencies as required for your application to run. So as I was telling, right, so it is telling the same thing. So it is compiling the Angular forms as ES 2015 as ESM. So those are the ESM JavaScript which I was talking about. So it compiles into this so that it can be hosted in your application, because your application does not understand it does not understand TypeScript. For him, TypeScript is alien language, right? Okay, so our application bundle is done. We are ready. So if you have done everything correctly, this is how it should look like for you now. Not much of changes in terms of HTML. Now what we will do is we will start creating the application which I showed you. And I'm going to explain certain CSS concepts, Angular concepts, and then we will start, okay? So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this. Okay, so before this, something very important. I don't know how many of you know. There is something called as a debug tool, which is available for your browser. It is there in each and every browser. I'm using Chrome. So my Chrome, if you press on the F12 button in the keyboard, it will open the debug console. So this debug console contains all the information available for your web application. So you will see something called as a console: sources, network, performance, memory, application, security, lighthouse, elements. So this elements is basically your it is your main diff. It is the index.html which has loaded. So now, as I was saying, so index.html gets loaded first, and you see this, right? Script source, main.js, vendor.js, styles.js, polyfills, and runtime. So what Angular has done is it has compiled all your code which you have written in TS files as modules and components. And it has generated this JavaScript files called runtime, polyfills, styles, vendor, and main. So main.js contains all your logic. Vendor.js contains all the JavaScript required in your node modules. Styles.js contains the style which you have mentioned from your behalf. And there are some system specific JavaScript like polyfills and runtime. So all these JavaScripts have been generated from the TypeScript folder which you are writing now. So as someone was talking about CDN, right? So this is why you don't need CDN. So what you do in CDN is happening out here in vendor.js or styles.js. So, okay, so now you see that there is something called as app root. So app root is basically your app component, and inside this component you can see that there are modules, div tags as it is written in our app component.html. Now we will start making some changes, okay? So bear with me. If you have any questions, please ask. We have around an hour or hour 15 minutes left, and I want to have this page completely created by the end of the day so that we can have some fun, right? Later on in the remaining of our time. Okay, so we will go back to our beautiful IDE and we will start making our edits. So now we are in our app component.html, and inside the app component.html, the first thing you see is toolbar. So to give you an example, this is the toolbar which we are talking about. So you can see class is equal to toolbar. So this is the toolbar. Now we are going to make some edits out here. So what we are going to do is we are going to change. So I'm going to talk about two things. I'm going to also explain you how data binding works, and we are going to change how it looks. Okay. So let us go to tooltip. So once we are inside our tooltip now, so if you can see role banner, there's a width. This is my Angular logo. So what I'm going to do is all this highlight card which is there, right? So highlight card, so this basically is reciprocating to this part out here. So what you see out here is equal to what is out here. So now if you see that our buttons have changed, they are not looking the same as they looked before. This is happening because there is a CSS collision in between the Bootstrap which we imported and the CSS which was written at the start by the Angular application itself. So we are going to make those CSS changes first. So we are going to go to app component.css, and so whatever you see host, right? So out here colon host means that this properties which you are defining inside this host is only applicable for this component. So we are going to do some changes. We don't want this to be only available for this component. So I'm going to cut it from here. So from app component.css, I'm going to cut it. So now if I say save, so the Angular project loads on its own, and the text has changed. You might not be able to see it properly, but you will see that certain fonts have become bold and etc. So now what we will do, we will take that portion which we had copied from our app component.css, we'll remove it from app component.css, and we will keep it in our main. So let us go to our main.css. We already have certain things out here. So what we are going to do is inside the body. So first let us have host. Now we see that the Apple system and font family. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this. This is not required. I'm going to copy this part from host and put it in body so that it is available for the entire application. And now I'm going to delete it. So with this, what I have done is the changes which were only there for the app component.html, now I've added it to the entire application. So just to give you an example, this is how your application looks like now. The resource is a bit more bold, next steps is bold. But when we save this and we go back to our component, so now it is again generating and it will auto generate, and now it will again load. So if you see, you might not be able to see those minute changes, but certain font styles have changed. Okay, so we have done this now. Let us go back to our app component.html. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the things which are not required to be static in our app component and put it into our home page. Okay, so what we are going to do is inside the div class content and role main, you will see a lot of div tags. You will see div card, you will see resources, you will see div card container, and then you will see this last terminal. So what we are going to do is everything above the footer. So everything above the footer, I'm going to copy till this place from highlight card. So from highlight card to the end till the div tag above footer, I'm going to remove this from here and add it in our home component.html. So what this will do is it has now taken all those things which were there as statically mentioned in app component and has put it out here. Okay, so now once this is done, we will go back to our app component.html. And now what we need to see is that there are certain things which has changed, because now there is a class called content. Now this content is not, it was available in app component.html. Now in home component.html, I have something called as a highlight card, but this highlight card does not exist in home component.css. All the CSS files are available in your app component.css. So what we are going to do is we are again going to copy the CSS files which are required from here. So just to make it easy for all of you, just whatever is there in app component, just select all, copy, and paste it in your home component.css. Do nothing. Do only this much. Everything else we will do it. So let's save this now. Let's save all the files changes and let's see what has happened. So now once this has happened, your entire body should be gone. Okay, so it has failed to compile. That means there is some error. Let's check. Okay. So what it is doing is inside the home component, there is a span tag where there is something called as title. So what this means is when you put curly brackets, so these are doubly curly brackets, whatever is kept inside this curly brackets is a variable inside your component.ts. So what it is telling is that, okay, you are trying to find out a variable called as title, but the title variable does not exist. That is why it is giving us a compilation error. What we are going to do is we are going to go to our home component. So as you can see, it is very similar to C# and Java. We have constructor, we have, so okay, another thing. So ng on init, so this is a function which is used in Angular. In Angular, we have life cycles. So each and every component goes through a life cycle. So ng on init means basically when a component is initiated, whatever you write inside ng on init, those logics will be computed. So in ng on init, if you want to do some calculation by default, so each and every time when you go to that component, that calculation will be pre-done before your HTML gets loaded. That is what ng on init means. So the same way we have a lot of lifecycle hooks, we say. We have ng on init, we have ng after view init, we have ng on destroy. So we are not going to go in much details. We'll do it the next day. But what it means is normally these are the lifecycle hooks where you can add your logic. So based on this lifecycle hooks, you can exactly mention what type of logic do I want to implement at what stage of a component. Okay. So what we are going to do is it is asking for title. So the way we declare variables in title out here is just you mention this. It's as simple as that. So when you mention title, and you can either directly just give it equal to say Moinam, your name. Okay. So as you see, I have not declared any type of title. So in Typescript, there is something called as automatic typecasting. So since I have done equal to Moinam, it understands that you have parsed a string to the variable. It is almost also like how it happens in Python. So you can directly do this, or if you want to be structured, as our professors tell us. So what you can do is you can add something called a string. So what it tells is that title is of a type string, and then Moinam is a value which is assigned to that. Why this is necessary is sometimes what we do is we keep it as empty. So as you see, it is going to give you an error that you have declared a variable of type string, but it has not been initialized. So in that case, you can do this. So, okay, so this is just some initialization thing. So you can do title string Moinam, your name. So maybe we can just add, say, shopping cart, and we are going to save. As we save, now it is going to generate again, and it is going to build it properly because the compilation error is now gone. So if you have done all the changes as I mentioned, this is what it will look like for you. So all the data which is there, it has now vanished. You're only left with a toolbar and a footer. This is all what is there. So now what we will do now is we will start working on our routing module. Okay. So let us go back to our IDE. we are going to go to app component.html and we'll start making some changes out here. Okay. So so there is something which I had done in my application. If you want, you can just keep it like this. It is actually not required. So what I had done was I had copied the rocket photo which was there, right? So in home component.html, you will have an SVG out here. So basically, this is nothing but it's just the image. So what I did was I replaced this image with the Angular image which is there at the moment out here. If you want, you can do it. If you don't want, it's not required. So I'm just going to copy it from here. And so where this image is mentioned, instead of image, I'm going to do this. And in CSS, okay, see, we'll make all the changes together. So this is done. We are also going to do some data binding out here also. So if you go back to your Chrome browser, you will see that all these things, the CSS is all gone wrong. So we will get back to it. In app component.html, we have a toolbar, we have a rocket. So if you see previously the image, it was completely centered and it was properly styled. But now that styling has gone. So what we will do is we will add that in app component.css. You can press Control F. If you press Control F, a find comes in your IDE. Then you can search for toolbar. And in toolbar, you will see IMG. So what we are going to do is, with this IMG, we are also going to mention comma SVG, because we have now changed from IMG to SVG. Once we do this, so there has been now some changes. So if you can see, there is a margin now. So now after this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add some height and width. So I'm going to go back to the component. In the rocket ship, you will see this width 101.678, height 101. So I'm just going to make it into 40, save. Once this is done, we'll see that the image is now smaller, but it is coming on top. We'll get back to this, okay? So now we have removed all our app components into a separate home component, and our app component only has toolbar and footer. So we are going to readjust certain things out here. First, we have a span welcome out here, right? So if you want, you can keep it, or else you can remove it. What I have done is that I have created some type of a route module tag. Okay, so before we do that, maybe we will go, for the first time, we will go inside app routing module. Now inside app routing module, if you remember, we have created a lot of components. Now we are going to start importing them and create the path. So import curly braces from quotes, single quotes, semicolon. Now inside this, you can go to dot slash, and now I'll start importing. So the first component which I will import is home. So I go to home component. Then I'm going to import, again curly braces from semicolon. Then now I'm going to import checkout. Now again I'm going to import products slash product list. Okay, so now if you see, the import is empty. What we are going to go back, inside and just press H. So the way the visual code works is it understands that there is a class which has been declared in the home.component.ts file, and it automatically shows you the specific, class which you would like to import. So it is easier this way. So we are going to go to home component. The same we are going to do with checkout. And now we are going to do the same with product list. Now, if you see, there is again, we are going ng module. We are importing router.module for root, and we are exporting. So for root routes, what it means is that for the app module, whatever we write out here, this instance will be final and this will not change. And it will be a single instance which cannot be copied or changed by some other module. So first, what we are going to do is, the way it works is we are going to put colon. So everything in Angular and React, all this thing, it works on JavaScript objects. So all the types of configurations you see out here, they're all JavaScript, or they're all JSON objects. So we are going to add a path colon. We are going to name it home. And now for this path, I have to assign a component. And so in component, I have my home component, which I want to initially start. So we are going to do that. Now we are going to go again path, checkout, again component. Now enter the checkout component. So what this means is that for each and every path you go, so localhost 4200/home/checkout, it means that you want to be redirected to that component. This is what this means. Now we are going to go to path all products. This is today we are not going to see to initialize all products. We'll do it tomorrow, but we are still going to have our components and routing module initialized. With this, we will have our product list component. So once this is done, now I'm going to do something interesting. So this path is there. What happens if someone directly goes to localhost 4200? We need to have some wildcard entries for that, so that they directly come out here. So what we are going to do is, we are going to declare path out here. And this is an empty path. And what we are going to write is, we are going to write redirect to. So redirect to, so if the path is empty, then you redirect it to home. And we are going to match it as full. So what that is what path match means. So path match full. Now again, I'm going to write another path. So now in this case, what I am going to do is, so in the first situation, what I did was I said, if it is an empty path, redirect to home. Now I'm going to put 2 asterisks. So what this asterisk means is that it is a wildcard. That means if you select anything other than what is mentioned in the route, it will still redirect to home. So you have home. Now someone wants to go to localhost 4200/amok. So /amok does not exist. What do we do? So in that case, we will redirect it to home. So if a particular path is not recognized, we will still redirect it to home. So once we do this, you will see that there is a change which is going to happen in your app component. So in your app component, the things which had been deleted now are again available. So how this has happened is, if you remember, we had our routing tag, router outlet. So with this router outlet, what it does is, it directly goes to our app routing module. and it from app routing module, it says it gets the configuration, what is to be done when a particular path is selected. So since we selected localhost 4200 and localhost 4200 means localhost 4200/home, we can use this out here. So we have home, right? So I can load home 1234. So home 1234 does not exist. What it is going to do is it is going to redirect to home. So this is some type of error handling which we do in our applications. It makes our life easier, and in every way it is good. Okay, so once this is done, now we will start doing some CSS changes so that our app component looks a bit more presentable. So routing is done. It knows that it has to go to home. Now we'll go back to our app component.html. The router outlet is outside. What we are going to do is we are going to put this router outlet inside our diff class main. So I'm going to copy this. And put it out here. So what it will do is, so in the class content and role main, we have defined some margins. So those margins will be affected when I again compile. So see, things look a bit better than before. They are not dragged. We'll keep on changing the CSS now. So once this is done, the footer, I'm going to change it. I don't want the self-publicity of Angular. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to publicize myself, but you can also do it for your own. So what we're going to do is there is something called, so I want to add a copyright symbol. How do I do it? So for symbols, there are HTML elements which you can directly do. They work with the operator AND. So if you do AND copy, semicolon, this means that you want to access the copyright symbol into your HTML. So I'm going to write my name and write your name. Can do this. Okay, so the footer is ready. So we have put the footer in place. We have router outlet. What we are going to do is we are also going to remove this Angular on YouTube and all this thing. Okay, we are going to get back to this later on, but for now, maybe let us remove at least YouTube. Let us keep Twitter. We'll keep it. We'll again change it. Now I'm going to copy this entire toolbar and put it inside content main. So what this will do is it will have my content as the main application, the main wrapper of my application, and all the components will be inside that. So if I do save, you will see some changes. Okay, so now now it is done. We have our initial component ready. Now we will again continue to start doing some CSS changes again. So let's do it. Let's start with the toolbar. So what I'm going to do is for the toolbar, since I have already now added my since I've already added the path, right? So I have showed that you know, the routing is done. So how do you use it? We are going to do that now. So what we will do is we have a welcome out here, right? And we have an SVG out here. So first we are going to mention a div, and I'm going to close this div after the welcome page, after the welcome span. Okay. Also, if you press Shift Alt F, your HTML gets resized. So Shift Alt F, for the first time, it might say configure. So you can use something called as pretty. So it configures your indentation, and it is easier for you to work. So now what we will do is inside this div tag, I'm going to add style, and I'm going to add cursor pointer. So what this means is when you hover on this particular div tag, your mouse will go from the normal way it looks like to a clickable instance. Once this is done, we will now add another thing. We are going to add something called as router link. So the router link, so the same way you do it using anchor tab. So router link uses the router module to switch between pages. Okay. So router link, we are going to go /home. So this will be our home page. So if we go somewhere else, you can click on this tab to return back to home. So that is router link /home. We are going to change this. Maybe yeah, let it be 40. Does not matter. Okay. So now we are also going to do some data binding out here. The same thing which we had done. So instead of welcome, now we are going to do some data binding. So now out here, I'm going to write name and so the shopping app part. So this entire part is actually your normal text, and this name part is data binding. So we are going to give some interesting font styles. So I'm going to change the font font weight to 400, semicolon, font size 20, and in my app component.ts, the same way I have written title my app, now I'm going to change it to name, the same thing which I did in the welcome page. I'll write my name. Once you do that, I'll save this. Let us go back. Okay. So now when you hover on this, you will see that you are getting an hand pointer icon. So this is what we have done once the changes have been reflected. So, as you see, the icon is going on top. We'll fix this later on. But again, now we'll go back to our app component.html. So our toolbar is ready. So now we are going to see our footer. So our footer is also ready. There is nothing else. I want to keep it very simple, but I'm going to do some CSS changes out here. So follow me. I'm going to go to app component.css. And now if you remember in the starting, we had a lot of tags, right? Which we had copied to our home component. So what we are going to do is we are going to replace certain things, the ones which we feel that should be available to the entire application. So this part, your H1, H2, margin, H pixels, and this. So I'm just going to copy this, to cut this, and I'm going to put it in my main.css. Because I want these changes to be there for the entire application and not only app component. So I'll do this. I'll again go back. So the toolbar is specific to app module. So we're going to keep it as it is. We can remove the YouTube because we have removed it from our toolbar. We can maybe let it be. So content is also specific to here. SVG material icons, let it be. Card SVG, let it be. So the cart container, this div tag I'll be using a lot of places in the application. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the entire part out here of the cart container. So cart container, all the places in cart container and the dot card we are going to copy. So dot card container, we remove. We put it in our main.css. We go back to app component.css, cart container. Let us take this, Control X. Okay, so once that is done, again we will check. So we have this SVG rocket. which we are using out there. So we can actually remove this. So we'll remove this smoke. Okay, so A visited, okay, this I can put it in our main.css. So what this CSS does is that whenever you hover on any anchor tag, so A visited hover, it will change its color, and text decoration none means basically whenever an anchor tag is there, there is a hyperlink which gets created. So the text gets an underline. So when you say text decoration none, you are saying that we are not changing that element, but we still want it as an anchor. Okay. So we'll go to app component.css. We have terminal. So the terminal, all these things were actually part of the home page now. So we can remove this. So all the changes which we are doing now, these are all happening in app component.css and main.css. So again, this also we can delete. Okay, so if you remember, I had told, right, that the main feature of Angular application is that you can resize them, and they work on mobile phones, tablets, and things, right? So what Angular has done is Angular has created some responsive styles for us. So they have created, so @ media with screen with max width of 767. So this is normally which happens for tablets. So for tablets, we are changing certain characteristics of our CSS so that the CSS gets readjusted and it can work properly with our laptops or with our tablets, with our phones. But all the changes which are mentioned out here, they are no more part of our app component, but they're all part of our home component. So what we are going to do is we are going to again take this entire thing out. As I said, we want app component to be as clean as possible. Whatever is at the minimum required, we are going to have it, and everything else we are going to dump it somewhere else. Okay, so home component already has it because as you remember, we had copied the entire app component CSS into home. So it will have all the things which was there before. So we are going to keep it as it is. We are going to continue editing our app component. So we have SVG clouds, we are using the footer, we are going to use circle link. Terminal is not required, SVG rocket is not required. Card highlight card is not required. Okay, so app component.css. So we can remove card highlight. Okay, so I think we should be fine. Let me check. SVG material icons. SVG material icons not. Okay, so let us save this now. We are going to save main.css also. So app component.css and main.css we have saved once it has been done. So now if you see, we have solved some issues. So if you remember previously, we were getting a problem that the icon was coming on top. Now it is coming properly. So job well done for us. So our toolbar is ready. Now we are going to make some changes to footer. So footer is now coming out here, but I want the footer to come at the end. So how do we do this? We go back. We go to our app component.css. We go inside footer, and now what we are going to do, we are going to write something called as position. If you know something called as position. So with position, what happens is you can fix certain elements into places. So what I'm going to do out here, I'm going to make it as position relative. So the position will be relative in terms of the content. So we'll go on top, content, position relative. Once the position relative is done, we will keep on changing it. We'll make it bottom 0. So what bottom 0 means is that in your page, this particular module will be always at the end, at the last. We are going to have some background color of our tab, so it looks nice. So you can have this hashtag 1976D2. It is just a color. You can change it to any other color you want. All the color of tags and all the HTML will be white. We are going to give it a height of 60 pixels. We are going to give it a width of 100%. That means the entire application. And for our copyright message, we are just going to add a padding towards our left of maybe, let's see, 10 pixels. We'll see how it is. So once we do this, we go back. Now you should see that the toolbar has come below like this. Great. Okay. Now from here, we will again continue. Is it fine for now, or is it too lengthy? Is there any questions you have? Or have you all slept?
No questions, sir.
Oh,
No
great. So we will continue now. Sorry, but if you do not maintain this CSS files, what is going to happen is you will not get that same look and feel the way it is supposed to be. So we have to do some certain changes. So okay, so now we have our app component ready. So now, okay, we are going to also change certain things in content. Flex. I'm just because I have done the CSS changes before, I am just trying to make it faster for all of you. So if you have any questions, I'll explain it to you later on. But for now, just follow my lead. So in padding, we are going to put 44 pixels and 16 pixels. We are going to remove view. Max width will be auto. Column. Okay, maybe we can remove the position. Just not required. Align item center. Okay, so let's save. Yeah, great. Okay, so now, so our app component is ready. So now we have a toolbar, we have a footer, we have it ready. The information which you are seeing, the resources and shop cart running is actually running from the home component. So you have successfully now created routing. You have created routing dependency. So from now, you are not running app routing. App routing is run as Bootstrap, but the other elements are coming from different components. So now let us go to home component.html and make some changes. So at first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this card highlight. It is not required. So this entire div tag, just erase it. We have our resources. We will get back to this later on. We have next steps. Next steps also we can do. So next steps, let us remove this entire thing. Okay. So cart container. Terminal. Okay, so we are going to delete this particular div tag, cart container, this entire part. build for production, run with tests, and the terminal. So all this are gone. Okay. Resources we can keep. Next links also we can remove. So let us remove this. So what we are doing now basically is we are building the home component, which on by default will be loaded in your app Bootstrap, because this is the specific component which has been redirected to. So we are just going to do all the changes required for that. Let us save. Let us see what has happened. Okay, great. So now we will do some adjustment, at least in the padding. Maybe some padding adjustment is required. So let us go to CSS home component.html. So basically at the moment, home component is ready. We are going to add other things as we go on. But now what we can do is we will again do the CSS remove. So H1, H2, H3, all these things we have already put in our main.css, so we can remove. Toolbar is not required for home component, so we can remove all the toolbar. Content, again, not required, so we can remove that also. SVG material icons, yes, because there are some other current CSS files which are using it, but or else even that is also not required, but we'll keep it for now. Card container, I have put it in main.css, so I can remove. Dot card also I can remove because this element is there in the main.css. So let's get all this removed. Okay, so card small, right? Let's see if we have card small. We don't. Okay, so we can remove card small, all the card containers. SVG, rocket, all these things we have already put. Terminal I'm removing, so terminal is no more required. Let us get away with that. Circle link we are going to keep because we are going to use it for certain things. Footer I can remove. Footer is not a part. All these things. So great. Okay, let us save. Okay. So now we are going to again have some more changes. So if you see now, so the display is now ready, your component is ready, the home component is ready. Now what we are going to do is we are going to use some of the plugins which we have got from Angular material and put it out here. Amok, can you send me the drive link so that I can upload some pictures?
Okay.
Yeah. Because I don't want to waste so much of time in CSS because it takes a lot of time. So maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to write some of the CSS and I'm going to put it in the drive folder. So you can quickly download it. And from there itself, what you can do is you can just copy paste the CSS. So we can directly get into with the Angular fundamentals rather than wasting time on CSS. So for now, what we have learned is we have learned what modules are. We have learned what components are, how the app module works, what is bootstrapping of app module, how your app component loads at the start, and how do you add new packages and work with package.json. So these are the new fundamental basics which you have done now. So with the routing, you have also now learned how you can route between components in the application. So once we can, just get the main.css over with, we can start with other things. So Amok, can you send me?
Yeah, I put it in the chat box.
Okay. I hope everyone has access to the chat, the drive, right? All the people out here.
Yes, it's open.
Okay, I don't have access to edit. Can you give me some access or just make it open for everyone?
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. So in the meanwhile, what we will do is we will see how we can import the material into our components. So now Angular material is available. Now what we need to do is we need to import it in our uh, component. So what we do is we will create one folder out here inside app called as common. So this is a folder. Inside common, we will create a model or a module. What that module will do is it will have all the material components as a part of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do nggm common slash material module.
Excuse me, sir. Can I get your IEEE mail?
Yeah, sure. Can't you just open it? It will be faster that way, right? Just open it. Remove all the edit things.
Actually, it is not giving me an option. It is asking me to invite people to edit this thing.
So if you see, there will be a get link in the below.
Yeah.
You see? So you can just you can just make that as default and
Okay. Done.
yeah, okay. So now it is done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload some CSS files for all of you. So please just download it from there. Um, just a moment. So while I'm importing this, all the people who are there, you can also start importing. You start downloading this from the drive and put it in your projects. So the main.css goes at main.css like that. So okay, so there we have this. Yeah, okay. So also I'm going to add a material module, which I'm going to make now because it's a very big lengthy list. So just let me know when you have imported all this, okay? So what I'm going to do now, so there is a material module.ts, which I have just created. Going back, so that is what I've done, nggm common slash material module. So you can do that same thing Inside the material module, you can just copy all the code which is there in the drive. Meanwhile, when you do that, I'm going to explain what exactly is happening. So what we have done now is that all these modules you see, scrolling module, portal module, drag block module, these are all modules which are part of our Angular material library. Each of this material has its own type of an HTML and CSS. And what we are doing is we are importing all those modules and we are exporting it out here. So what it does is now you do not need to import all these modules separately. You can just import the material module in whichever module you want this changes to be done, and it will automatically take it. Okay. So I'm going to save the material module out here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to app module. Inside my app module, I am going to import the material module which I got. So how we do it? Simple again. Import, keep it like that, from common / material module /. So the material module is done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type emp. It is automatically going to recognize material module. Great. Save. So the CSS files which I gave you, I'm going to update it for myself also. Just update it because unnecessary wasting time on CSS is not required. We can directly move on with the Angular fundamentals, which will be more necessary for you. CSS you can learn in your free time, right? So main CSS. I'm now okay. So I have updated main home product view. I'll also send you the app component CSS. It looks like my terminal has crashed. 1 minute. Okay, so we will just keep on adjusting the CSS as I have shown out there. So material module, just copy it, main.css, home component, home product view, app component, and then we will start doing the linking of all the things in terms of the Angular fundamentals. So main.css has been updated. Let's go to app component. Okay, then let us go to our home page and update the CSS as the one I have sent you already. So home CSS done. Okay, so home CSS, app component.css, and okay, another one was home product view, right? So home product view. Let me know if you have already done this or you are still importing. Any of you? Is it have you already imported all the CSS as I had said, or you are still doing it?
We are downloading it, sir.
It's done, right? So you have replaced the CSS from the drive to the existing project.
Not yet, sir. We are doing.
Yeah, so please do it and let me know once you're done with that. Any of you, if anyone has any problems or anything, please do let me know. Once the CSS has been done, we will go on with now doing some HTTP modules because I think there's only 4 minutes left. So we are just going to make the carousel from the Angular material, and tomorrow we will work on the product listing and HTTP modules and service interaction between the components. So that will cover your basics of Angular and will help you to, create projects if you want any mini project or major project in your engineering, or if anyone out here is there from professional life, you can start working on Angular. So by the time you do all this, is there any question? Are you following me, or should I go slow, or do you have any questions, any things which you did not understand? Okay, then let us continue. While it is compiling for me, my terminal crashed, so it is compiling everything on its own again. Take some time. So we have created the home component and app. We have done all the changes in our app component.html as it was required. We have done the changes in home component.html. We have shown it in the app module. Now we are going to add Angular material plugin. Once that is done, we will also just create a sample if there is time. It's already 7 o'clock, maybe another 15 minutes. So we will do some changes out there and we will end it for today. Tomorrow we will again continue from where we left. Are you done with your CSS importing? Is there anyone who is still pending to do that? Okay, so my application has now compiled. Let us run. Yep. So so this is something it should look like for you. So now what we are going to do is I'm going to consider that you have done the CSS changes and you have created the material module as I asked. So common material module, we have imported this in our app module. So any modules or any plugins, if you want to use it in your components, they have to be first imported in your module, then are they are only available for your components. So we have added out here material module. Now we are going to go to our home component.html. For more information for Angular material, just go directly to the website and do some tweaks, have some fun. There are a lot of plugins. You can go to components. There are a lot of components out here. You can just go ahead and drag and drop, make your own logic, and start exploring. This is the best way to learn Angular material or Bootstrap. So we are going to do this. So For carousel, you can go to angularmaterial.io, and there will be something called as, oh sorry, it is not Angular Material, it is ng Bootstrap. Okay, so in ng Bootstrap, you can go to components. In component, there is carousel. So you have something called a stack blitz. It's also something interesting. This is like a local editor. You can, if you feel that your laptop is not powerful enough, you can make web applications in stack blitz and share it with your friends for, you know, changes if there is required. So from here, actually, you can take the code and copy paste. So if you remember, what I had done was in the drive, I have added two things, image and data. If you see this, right? So image contains 3 images for our carousel, and data contains a JSON file which I have done for our products. So both of these are required, but for now in carousel, what you need to do is you need to copy this image folder and you have to go to your assets folder in project. So the same way you have app, you have assets. Inside assets, just copy that image folder which you had downloaded from the drive and put it inside assets. What it will do is, when we do the link, it will create the link automatically. So the same way now I have copied and I have added images into my assets folder. So this is how it should look. CSS folder, image folder, inside image folder you have this, and the data also, I'll paste it. So data also will be like a folder in your assets, and it will contain a product.json. I'll explain what is it tomorrow, but for today, please make sure that you have added the image folder in assets folder. Once that is done, we'll go to home component.html, and what we will do is we will start working on our carousel. So the first thing what we are going to do is, so there is, if you have seen the ng Bootstrap document, it has already mentioned what you need to do. So ngb carousel is the way you call it, and then ng template. So this is what you need to copy to have this. So I'm going to write it with you so that you don't need to copy it from anywhere. So what we'll do is we'll just push this down. Okay. So now what we will do is we will start by creating a div tag. And in this div tag, we will mention class equal to card container, which is there in the main.css. So it will directly take it from the main.css out here, card container. Now let us start working on the carousel. So as it was written out there, we have to write ngb. So this ngb carousel, what this does is it understands that you are trying to ask for a component from a vendor, because as you remember, there is a vendor.js, and from there now you can start working. So we will do this ng template. Okay, so this is not required. So there is also something called as directives. So I will again explain this in detail tomorrow. But what directives does is that this ngb slide is a directive. With this directive, what you tell is that you want a particular logic to be added for this div tag. So maybe this ngb slide is responsible for some animation or for some input tracking. So if you click on a button, it might track that. So this is how you use a directive. I'm going to create a custom directive for you tomorrow and we'll explain how that works. For now, so the same way you have for loops, we are going to write a for loop out here. So star ng for is the prefix which you need to use to write for loops in Angular. So once that is done, what we do is we're going to do let. So this img for this instance is the object which we want to use in our ng template of images. So we are going to create the images array. As you saw that we had we have imported the images, right? So now we are going to do the necessary code changes in the home component.ts for that to make place. For now, we will do this. So let image of images means image is the index of your images array. You're going to put semicolon and we are going to write index as I. So what this means is that index 0, 1, 2, 3, if you want, that is available to you as the letter I. Now we are going to put again another div tag. Inside that, we are now again going to mention our class. So this is a special class from the ng Bootstrap module. So pick some. Again, these are some adjustments which I have made for the application. This is just to make it faster so that we don't waste time. But yeah, there are certain things which we have to do so that it works properly. So there we go. Now we are going to add image. So this must be something new to you. So when we say source and when we put block brackets out here, what this means is that you want the source to be directly taken from the TypeScript. So there are two ways where you can declare binding. So when we put square brackets on any variable in a tag, so brackets img equal to img. What this means is that I am doing data binding from the for element which I am receiving. So on the top in ng template, I have an ng for where I am using an array. And img is an index of that array which contains an object. That object is being binded to my image tag. To have this, we need to write block brackets and then the source. So this will also be placed in all the other tags as in as required, but this is how we do it. This is what it means by square brackets and then the source. So you're binding it to img. So we are just going to give an alternate text to it. If by chance the images don't load, I'm going to go to style, object fit, contain. Okay, so once this is done, don't save it yet. Go to your home component.ts. Now we will start doing some things. Okay, so the first thing what we will do is we will create the images array, which we did, right? So I am images equal to, so if you want to declare an array, this is the best way to declare it. So the same way we declare it in other languages also. So this means an empty array. Now I'm going to start adding assets. So I have 3 images. So I'm going to do this. Now what you can do is you can go directly to your image folder, copy path, and put it out here. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this C users and keep it as assets. So assets slash image slash bring image of the day. This should directly, okay, wait. Yeah, so this should directly give me the access to the images in my image folder. So if you see, so it is underscore 202. So okay, so our image is created now. So now what we'll do is we are going to save this first. Then we are going to save this. If everything is done properly, it should work, or else we will get some error. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So, okay, so the slide 1 of 3 we can remove on top. So now we have successfully added an ng bootstrap component with just copying the elements which have been given. Very straightforward, very fast, very easy to use. So this is the reason why we have this type of plugins, because you normally don't want to waste your time for things like this, right? So that is why we do this. So yeah, so your carousel should work. Now what we are going to do is we are just going to we are going to import components from Angular material, and we are going to do something called as parent-child relationship. So I'm not going to do a lot of explanation out here because I think we have only 2 minutes of time. So in the next day, tomorrow, what we are going to do is, now our home page is created, our carousel is ready, routing is ready, components are ready, modules are ready. Tomorrow we will start configuring the modules and make relationship in between them. So this is it for today, I think. So we have successfully created a semi home page for our web application. And then as soon as we continue, we will build the entire application, which you can then work on your own time and start building separate modules out of it. So if you have any questions, you can tell me, or I think this is it for today. We will resume tomorrow. Amok?
Yeah, no questions from my side. So
Okay, then I think we can conclude it for today. Thank you. Yeah.
thank you, man. Thank you, sir. So tomorrow the timing will be from 9 to 12 in the morning.
Yeah. Okay. So see you guys tomorrow. Sorry for a lot of theory, but there are certain things which you need to know before starting the Angular implementation. Tomorrow it will be maximum of coding. So we will code a lot of part out there. Once our coding is done and we have created a lot of things, from that part, then we will, I'll just show you certain Spring Java modules. So we call it as microservices. So we create microservices in Java so that they can communicate with other Angular projects or any client whatsoever. So I'm just going to show you some Postgres implementation in Spring project, if it is possible, if time permits, or else we will continue with our Angular and complete the journey out here. I will I will put the code in my GitHub account. So if you have missed anything anywhere, don't worry. Just understand what we are doing, why we are doing it, and you can recheck and resume from there. So thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye, sir.